What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Now, I got a couple of clips for you guys today, and it's not Piers Morgan debates. As a matter of fact, we're going in on MSNBC because the Democrats can't seem to learn their lesson. But right quick, before we get into that, if I could get you guys to do me a favor and smash that like button for me, I sure would appreciate that. And maybe think about subscribing. That would be great, too, because we trying to grow the channel around here, in case you haven't noticed that. But let's get back into it. So, Democrats are going through a introspection period after losing everything. I mean, they lost it all. So they're going in trying to figure out how can we come out and win again, as a matter of fact. So they're going through an introspection period, trying to see where we went wrong. What was it? Was it, identity politics? Was it our policies? Was it this? Was it that? And for some reason, they seem to can't get away from the identity politics. Now, us over here on the other side, we've been telling these people, drop the freaking identity politics. It's insanity. Nobody cares about your gender identity, but what they're thinking now is, hey, let's add more identity politics. Let's add gender and multi-genders and multiculturalism and all this other garbage on to their policy platforms here. And it's just not working. They don't seem to get it.
Look, I think I certainly wrote in my column for the 19th at one point that 107 days, I think that was the only way that we were going to get Vice President Kamala Harris as a candidate, but was 107 days enough for her to win over the American electorate? And I think the answer is no. And I mean, obviously the answer is no, but I think that's also kind of where that campaign team landed. But, I think also, reflecting on where we are as a democracy on the other side of this election is absolutely a useful exercise. But I think what's also useful is to remind ourselves of who we say we are as a country. And, are we still a country that's committed to this idea of multicultural, multiracial, multi-gender democracy? And what does it mean if we aren't? Like, I was listening to this podcast and kind of reading some of the other kind of postmortem assessments of 2024 that kind of suggest this strategy going forward that abandons identity politics. And that was the thing that I found most interesting kind of from this conversation and others like it, because it's not as if Donald Trump's entire strategy was not based on identity politics, right, Katie? I mean, MAGA is an identity. It's one based on white grievance around issues from the economy to education to immigration. And so this was not really about Democrats or Kamala Harris losing. The other side simply had the better identity politics strategy. So I think on the other side of this, thinking about who the voters are as opposed to who either of these candidates are and who had the better campaign is the question that we need to be asking ourselves now.
Okay, so that's some of the most absurd analysis I think I've ever seen. Oh, Republicans they just had better identity politics. It's surrounded by white grievance and immigration and all this other stuff. No. Yeah, sure. Okay, so she was right about one thing, but for the complete wrong reasons, as a matter of fact. Okay, so, yeah, Republicans and us over here in the real world on the other side, we do have identity politics, but it's self-identity. It's meritocracy. Who is the better person? Who is the better candidate? Individualized. Doesn't matter your gender. Doesn't matter your race. Doesn't matter any group you may belong to. It's meritocracy. Individualized identifications. That's what we go in on. Meritocracy works, okay? I'm sorry to break it to these people, but your gender identity, your race identity, and all these other identities that you guys come up with is not working. People don't like to be placed into a certain group because we have individualized personalities. And I guess they don't seem to get this, even though we've been screaming this from the rooftops. Your identity politics is bad for the country. It's divisive. People don't like it too much. People don't like being placed into a box, right? But they just refuse to look at that and say, well, they just had better identity politics than we did. No, that's not the case. That is not the case. They also are not looking at the fact that you put up an idiot as your candidate, somebody who has no communicative skills whatsoever. She gets on there and just says stuff that has no meaning behind it. There's no substance to her words, right? She tries to speak as if she's speaking deeply in these broad issues, right? All this garbage, but it doesn't work. You got to speak clearly, concisely to the people, to the population, to get your points across, especially when you're trying to run for president. You've got to show strength. You've got to show wisdom. You've got to show character, right? We don't care that she was a black lady or an Indian lady. That doesn't matter to Republicans, right? That might matter to Democrats because that's how they view the world. Oh, if you're white, you're bad. If you're black, you can do anything you want to. If you're Hispanic, you got to be this. Or if you're Chinese, you got to be that. No, we don't have to be any of those things. And they just don't seem to get these ideas. And this little conversation continues with some more identity politics, believe it or not.
I'd love to hear your opinion on this, Matthew. If this is more of a Democratic Party problem, the Democratic Party not necessarily having an identity in itself, or not being well enough defined for the public as a change vehicle.
I mean, here's how I look at this election. And I think oftentimes myths develop in the aftermath of an election that aren't based in data and aren't based in actually what happened in the course of this. I think we can't talk about this election. And I noticed on this podcast, which I listened to part of, that the elephant in the room or the donkey in the room that was never mentioned was Joe Biden. And Joe Biden's job approval rating on election day was 40%. And the normal election outcome of somebody with a 40% approval rating for their vice president is to get 40 or 41% of the vote. The vice president got 48% of the vote in this election. And I think that reading this one election is somehow an examination of so many other things other than the most important factor on election day in every state and in every demographic group was Joe Biden's job approval rating. That's what drove the vote cast more than anything else in here. And I would remind all of us and your listeners and viewers, 2 years ago, the Democrats did exceedingly well in all these states, and they elected women across the board for governor, for Senate, not only in 2022, but in 2024 simultaneously, where the vice president was losing in this. And so I think overreading this in too many other avenues, take the Democrats. I think here's what's happening. Both the Democrats and the Republicans are misreading the results of the election. The Democrats are misreading it, thinking they have to somehow abandon all these things and sort of completely reformulate their party, when I believe that isn't true. They have to make adjustments. They have to make changes. They have to do certain things. But basically, they just won a series of elections in 2022. And the Republicans are misreading this election, thinking they won because of Donald Trump. They won in spite of Donald Trump this year. Donald Trump underperformed by 7 or 8 points in this election, in a normal election with a job approval like Joe Biden. And that's what I think we have to start with. And then we can talk about all the other stuff.
No. Stop. Don't abandon identity politics. We need to double down on identity politics. It's Joe Biden's fault, the reason we lost the election, because Joe Biden sucks, because he's a white dude. Yes, that's what they're trying to tell you. Listen to the people on the freaking ground. Okay, populism is popular right now. Go figure. Okay, listen to the populists. Don't listen to these establishment robot individuals that just repeat the talking points and just say, let's go with this. No, stop listening to the establishment. The establishment that on the Democrat side is going to run you guys into the freaking ground, okay? Republicans are starting to get wise to this. They're starting to see these establishment politicians are garbage for politics. We don't like establishment politicians. We don't like the people that get up there and say, oh, we need decorum. We need to invade Russia, blah, 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 blah. We need all the talking points, blah, blah, blah. You get it. The robots that just repeat what is said and just say things that stay within this certain line. No, we need to get outside of that. Speak to the people. Speak as if you're a real person. Don't speak like some corporate robot that's only interested in saying what needs to be said, but not doing what needs to be done. That's what we need. Somebody who's going to say what needs to be done instead of saying what needs to be said, right? I hope you guys understand where I'm going with this. These people just don't make any sense. They don't learn their lessons. They don't understand what's going on, the reality on the ground. They don't look at everything in surrounding, bring that all in, and realize your identity politics is broken. It's not going to work anymore. It's divisive as hell. People don't like being put into boxes. And that's the whole point of this whole thing, right? Don't put people in a box. Then they feel like there's some group identity. They feel like they've lost their individuality. I don't know why I had so much trouble saying that just now, but it felt like I had to struggle to get that out. But that's what people don't like. And that's what the Democrats have lost, is their individuality. Right? You get these corporate robots, these corporate shills, especially when you do things like putting up Kamala Harris, right? With nobody voted for Kamala Harris. Nobody voted for her in the primary. I know some people make the argument, but it's not a good argument that, oh, well, Joe Biden, we voted for Joe Biden and that's the vice president. Treating it as if it's the presidency, like if Joe Biden goes down, then she takes the mantle. No, that's not how this works. People want a genuine, grassroots-based candidate, right? In 2016, if the Democrats would have put up Bernie Sanders, I think we might have had a very different outcome. That would have been left-wing populism versus right-wing populism. And I don't know which one of those would have won. But instead, they put up, the corporate robot versus the guy that, speaks to the people. You'd be in jail because we know she's broken laws and she deserves to go to jail, right? Only Rosie O'Donnell. These type of things make people laugh. It makes Trump an endearing figure to some and hated by others, the people on the other side, right? And he's talking about Donald Trump underperformed. Really? You look at the results of the outcome of this election and you say that Donald Trump underperformed and it's Joe Biden's fault. Wow, dude. You've lost touch with reality. You need to get back in touch with your grassroots. Go talk to real people on the ground. People that actually get out and go vote. Don't talk to these pollsters that don't poll real Americans, that don't poll regular, average, everyday folks. Because regular, average, everyday folks don't answer the phone for those polls, for crying out loud. That's why you can't really go based upon the polls. The polls lied. They haven't learned their lessons at all. The polls are garbage at this point, right? You got Alan Lichtman over here with the keys. But, however, the keys, they're pretty good, to be honest with you. When you read all those keys out and you look at all the keys, the 13 keys to the White House, they actually accurately predicted the results of this election. And according to Alan Lichtman, he's been wrong. He's been right 10 out of 10 times. He got this one wrong because his outcome of the keys were wrong because he was basing all of his stats and everything off of MSNBC propaganda, right? When you base your reality upon fake news, you're going to get it wrong, obviously. But, you take somebody like me who's grounded into the news. I'm very in touch with what's going on. I read 10, 15 news articles a day. I'm constantly in the news, right? I saw his keys. And Donald Trump overwhelmingly had the majority of those keys when you read everything out. It's absurd, but Alan Lichtman had Kamala Harris as winning. Right? Once again, when you base your worldview on this made-up garbage from MSNBC, you're going to get it wrong, buddy. Identity politics is wrong. It's not going to work. But I think I've went on for long enough on this one, y'all. Y'all don't forget, do me a favor and smash that like button. Subscribe if you're new around here. And y'all let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comments section. Do you agree with identity politics, or do you think that identity politics needs to be broken all the way down to an individual level to where it's no longer identity politics? Yeah, it's a meritocracy at that point. Y'all let me know what y'all think. That's all I got for this one. I want to thank everybody for watching, and y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.